Okay, we're live. Testing, testing. Today on Quality Time with Family Ties, we learn you don't need Scott Jones when you've got Campbell Scott.
3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Quality Time with Family Ties. I am one of your hosts, Corey Pepper. I am here long distance with Paul Packler. How are you, sir?
We might be long distance geographically, but you are deep inside my heart.
and you're right. Who needs Scott Jones? We got Campbell Scott this week.
I was so surprised.
I didn't quite realize. He was familiar to me. And then I had to go, of course, to IMDb and say, oh, it's Campbell Scott, because I had to pause it immediately because I knew his face. And for those of you who may not know, Campbell Scott is the son of a very high-profile acting couple, George C. Scott and Colleen Dewhurst.
That's who his mother was. I couldn't remember who his mom was.
Who was the female lead of that miniseries that I did, Studs Lonigan. So I'd worked with Colleen Dewhurst.
Indeed. And George C. Scott has been in many things. He was in Patton.
The Oscar-winning actor, George C. Scott. Just one of the great actors. Campbell Scott actually ended up, both of his parents had sort of distinctive voices. Colleen Dewhurst had sort of a patrician New England kind of voice. And gravelly voiced old George C. Scott had a gravel voice. And Campbell Scott was sort of good looking and had a normal voice.
Yeah. I mean, he looked very much like Kyle MacLachlan when he walked in.
Very much so.
Yeah, I'm sure they went to zillions of auditions together because it was the exact same time as Kyle MacLachlan doing all of his Lynch stuff.
So here we are. It's season 6, episode 8, entitled "the case about the psychological snatchers." What is it?
Yeah, what is it? The invasion of the psychologist snatchers?
That's it. That's what it is.
It's interesting that they can't stop just referring to Lauren as a psychologist. It's like, hey, this is the one defining characteristic about her, and so we're just going to keep hitting you over the head with that.
That's what happens when you write this vanilla character.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, it was just another sort of lazy episode where they sort of recycle an old Ellen plot or a couple of old Ellen plots.
Yeah, because what the plot, to do the quick version of it, is an old boyfriend comes to visit, and Alex gets jealous. Now, that was an Ellen plot, wasn't it?
I remember it as being one, so it just seemed like, oh, it's that one again.
Yeah.
We have an unbelievably flimsy B plot of Jennifer and Stephen rattling on about
Kierkegaard.
I just want to reiterate one more time. Jennifer is a freshman in high school.
I mean, she's doing what would be in an undergrad program. They're giving her a class, and the subject of philosophy that she's studying is not something a 9th grader would study.
Correct.
What's Logan? What grade's Logan in?
10th grade.
Is he studying Kierkegaard?
No, he would know. He would think Kierkegaard is like a deodorant.
Yeah. And I'm still not sure myself.
So we open up with Jennifer writing a paper on philosophy. And I, of course, commented, oh, my God, she's taking philosophy as a high school freshman. Please, let's get in touch with reality. I'm glad they're getting history class. And very soon thereafter, Lauren and Alex come in. And right from the very get-go, we have a classic Alex P. Keaton, you really should listen to your parents, because he does the most chauvinistic thing of taking the bags from the fragile woman, the grocery bags.
Right. He's overdoing it and trying to be like, no, Lauren, no woman whom I love will ever carry things.
Anyone who didn't see the episode might think you were embellishing that line, but I think that is the
verbatim. That might be verbatim, yeah.
And that's how it just sort of it sort of like gave me a slap right across the face with Alex's first line. It was like, whoa, is this episode going to suck that bad?
Yeah.
It doesn't. It doesn't continue to suck that hard.
But you know what? I'll say this though: they are putting a little bit of a spin on it. Like they're trying to overdo it. They're trying to make him seem completely chivalrous to the nth degree. Because then he's like, no woman I love would ever do this. And then the two other women that he loves, his mom and his sister, come in loaded to bear, each of them.
Right. Here's something that occurred to me during that scene. Have you ever seen so many boxes come out of grocery bags before?
No, that was very strange.
It was like he took out like 10 boxes of things, like cereal. I don't even know what the other things were, but they were all like 10 boxes from one bag. Then he emptied another bag, and they were all boxes again.
Yeah, it's just lazy prop department where they're like, we don't want to put in like bananas, just use some boxes.
That's it. We're not giving you produce and meat. I'm sorry. We're only giving you a box of Pop-Tarts.
And there was an old box of Cheerios that was like a funny thing to see.
Yes, there was an old Cheerio box. It was very strange. So the phone rings, and Mallory races to the phone. In a moment where I thought there was going to be a plot involving Mallory, and absolutely she had nothing to do in this episode.
It was really funny because she runs to the phone. She's like, oh, I got it. And then they never come back to that.
Not only do they come back to it, they barely come back to her. It's just like she's almost not in the episode. It turns out that the phone call is Lauren. It's for Lauren. She has a phone call for Lauren at the Keaton's home. And it turns out that who is calling Lauren at the Keaton's home but her ex-boyfriend, Eric.
Now, this is... there's a couple things I want to talk about here.
The leap of logic?
Yes. Now, first, for our younger listeners, before the days of cell phones, you used to find out where people were going, right?
That's correct.
And so you would have to be like, you can reach me at this number. I'll be here until 4 o'clock. Then you can reach me at this number, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And so apparently, somehow, Eric on the other side of the phone has found that his ex-girlfriend, who he lives in New York. She lives in Columbus. He's found out where she's going to be, has asked around people to be like, hey, where could she be? And gets like a handful of phone numbers and then starts rattling off phone numbers in order to find her boyfriend's house. And then he calls it in order to set up a date with his ex-girlfriend.
Correct.
That's interesting.
You think that is a little on the interesting side. I thought way too much about that myself.
And so the thing that really sets that off for both you and my to just like think about that for forever until the commercial break is that Lauren actually says, how did you get this number? And then we never find out.
No. I want you to understand also that my 93, almost 94-year-old mother still thinks that phones don't move with people. She still thinks that phones are connected to a cord that's maybe around like 8 inches long.
Wow.
And so that she will constantly, that if I'm talking to her, that I'm home.
That's amazing.
I don't even have a landline.
No.
She has no clue that she's not calling a landline when she calls me. And then she also does things like this when I get my voicemail messages. Pick up. Please pick up. Please pick up. Pick up, Corey.
That's my favorite. So she got to like the 90s. Her awareness of phone technology got to the 90s where you try to get people to pick up a voicemail or an answering machine.
That's correct. That's where she's frozen in time. About 91, 92.
That
pick up. Every day I get a message and it goes on forever. She thinks that the longer she speaks, the more shot I have of wiping my ass and getting off the toilet. and picking up the phone. She first of all, she doesn't understand that if was listening to her say pick up, and I was in the 90s, I'm not going to pick up if I'm not going to pick up. Nothing she says can get me to pick up the phone to talk to my mother.
How many pickups would a person have in 1992? How many pickups would your mom have to say for you to pick up?
Infinity. She could go on forever. I would she still couldn't control me in 1992. There's no. The only thing is if she said anything had happened to my father, because he was still alive at the time. Because I don't really care about her. So it would be like my father. Oh, my father was ill. Okay, then Corey, your dad's ill. Okay, then I'd pick up. But my mother, she could say, Corey, I've got 8 minutes left of my life. Okay, great.
Oh no. Oh
Lord.
Family ties.
Family ties indeed, as my wife just said.
Hi, Susanna.
Hi, Paul.
Oh, Lord. So Eric is coming to town, and he wants to have dinner with Lauren. And Alex, of course, says it's all right, but acts it's not all right.
But you know what? And let me just say one final thing about Eric and the phone call. Based on what we find out about who he is as a person, it's totally fine. My being like, wait, how many people did he call? How did he get this number? Who would call your girlfriend, your ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend's house to try to set up a date? Eric is the type of person who would do that.
He's a very type A personality is the best way to describe him. Very tightly wound, organized. If he has a goal, he needs to achieve the goal before he can move on to something else.
And so to move on to the next thing that you were just saying, Corey, about Alex saying he's fine with it and then not necessarily being fine with it, I feel like that's a normal response. Like, yeah, people can meet up with people can meet up with exes, but the feelings there can still be a concern.
Right. And that's where we sort of morph out of that scene into the night at Lauren's place when Eric is arriving. Alex is attempting to leave before Eric arrives so that he doesn't have the awkwardness of having to meet Eric. But instead, he sort of announces that, and then he sort of acts like an idiot for a few minutes, sort of stalling time. And then Eric arrives and has a really awkward moment with Alex P. Keaton.
And this is part of the episode that I actually enjoyed, kind of, is seeing Alex on his heels. Like, finding someone who's not just a match for Alex, but who's his better, who plays the game better.
He's a better version of Alex.
Yeah, yeah. He's everything that Alex wants to be, and he's better at it.
And he seems like Alex without being a sociopath.
Yes. He seems like a dick. Like, I wouldn't want to hang out with Eric.
No. He wasn't a pleasant person at all. Very, very, and I also, this was also something that was so, where are we in reality? 1988? Is that where we're?
87? I think so, 87.
Is the free discussion of, I love money. You love money too? Hey, we both love money. Nowadays, if two people stood together and discussed their love of money in full voice of other people in a social gathering, they'd be two dicks. Now you can't freely discuss money, and greed is not something to aspire to.
No, these two type characters, they wouldn't be as lovable on TV now. They would just be a villain.
Absolutely. See, here they're sort of, wow, we're sort of cuddly dicks who both love money. That was all the things I thought, wow, Alex has finally met somebody who's sort of like him, but better.
Yeah. And so I like that. I like that quality. I like seeing Alex being not as good as somebody else, and I like that they got along. That's nice when that happened. And it was a surprise because going into the scene, Alex is very nervous. Now he's like in love with this guy.
And then I thought the strongest moment, the strongest comedic moment of this episode happens right here when they're sitting on that desk together and say, oh, this is ridiculous. What we're doing, we might as well exchange resumes. And they both reach into their jacket pockets and pull out resumes and hand them to each other.
It's a very good bit.
Very good bit. They did it silently. They did it straight faced. It wasn't smug. It was, no, we got our resumes, but this one we just exchanged them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was very matter of fact. I thought it was really well done. And they sort of got out of the second scene realizing we are basically the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And moved back into the kitchen again for a, we come back to Jennifer and Dad, I think.
Yeah, so just to explain this a little bit further, it's that Stephen wants to help Jennifer with her homework, and she's like, well, Dad, every time you do that, you go overboard. And so that, like you said before, is a plot line we've seen before, whether it's Alex, where there was a whole story of Alex making Jennifer do homework back when she was younger, or Stephen. They've both done this thing where they just go ape over homework.
Right. And this plot sort of hangs there and goes nowhere.
Yeah.
Instead, Alex comes in and starts wondering aloud, what are his attractive qualities?
And this is a nice, funny
yeah.
prop joke.
Right. And he says, I thought a lot about what my really good qualities are. And he pulls out something, and it looks like it's a sheet of paper, and it's a scroll.
Mm-hmm.
He sort of rolls it on the kitchen counter. Mallory sort of pokes at Alex, trying to sort of make him jealous a little bit about Eric.
Well, that's the thing. Elise sees, because she's showing them, hey, I've made a partial list of all of my good qualities, and it's the big scroll, and ha ha ha. But then Elise says, oh, look, you also wrote Eric's good qualities. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, Eric's my imaginary friend who I met from Canada, and all. It's just like the scene devolves, and this is just like after the last scene where I was like, oh, this is actually kind of funny, and it's an interesting turning it on its head that he likes her ex-boyfriend. This scene makes no sense. Mallory starts funning Alex about that Eric exists or he doesn't exist and all this stuff, and then I totally lost the thread of what they were even discussing.
And then Alex meanders and he starts saying, what is it that you like about Alex P. Keaton? And then they have the strangest act break I've ever seen on Family Ties. It basically ends abruptly. I don't understand.
And with that, we'll be right back. And we're back. So you were saying about the last scene, Corey.
That's exactly what the act break was like in the show. It was so bizarre. It was almost like he paused and they faded out and went to 2 minutes of commercial. It wasn't funny. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't anything. It was like in the middle of a scene. What do you like about Alex P. Keaton?
I couldn't name anything.
Wow.
He's good at physical comedy.
Yes. We're back in the kitchen again. We're back with Stephen and Jennifer. We're continuing their argument about Kierkegaard. Jennifer had a speech that I can't believe she memorized so flawlessly. I mean, I never praise anyone's memorization, but I don't believe she understood what she was saying, so I thought her memorization was great.
Yeah, it sounded like kids doing Shakespeare type thing, where it was just a by rote recitation.
Babbling some Kierkegaard bullshit.
Now, Corey, can I ask you, have you gotten to the point with Logan that his homework is getting to be like, I don't know.
Just the other night, he showed me a chemistry test that he took. I didn't take chemistry in high school. I got out of all science after biology because I was a horrendous science student. I was a horrendous math student, a horrendous science student. And in my school, they felt, oh, let the creative people take more English and history classes and let them graduate that way and don't force them to lower their grade point averages. So after geometry, I never took another math class. And after biology, I never took another science class.
Wow.
Until I got to college. So so now he brings me a chemistry test and it's like, son, I can't even look at it. It makes no sense. I can't help him with math. I can't help him with science. He's doing he's an AP World History, and my concentration was always American history. So it's AP World. That's too difficult for me. I can't handle that.
Right, right. Yeah, that's
So I
cool
could-
though that he's already taking AP history.
yeah, World this year and AP American next year.
Okay, that's great.
Mhm.
What's his favorite? Does he like all the maths and stuff or no?
No, no, no. His favorite is going to the set, working on American Housewife. That's his favorite.
Fair enough.
So in this scene, Alex comes in. He's totally distracted. He can't seem to get in touch with Lauren. It's the night of the date. He's trying to make a phone call to find out where Lauren is. And then he makes a second phone call to find out where Lauren is. And he does the thing that I point out all the time that I hate. Why are you talking to imaginary people when there are other actors on the show? That's never an interesting scene, especially when you're going to do it twice in a row. It's just not interesting to make jokes by yourself because there's nobody setting you up.
Right.
And so Alex is panic stricken, and it appears to be late-ish. And of course, his mind is a wandering as to what's going on between Eric and Lauren.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess she should have called. Maybe, right?
Did you ever do anything silly when you were a young man and jealous and for a woman? Did you ever do anything silly?
I'm sure. I can't think of anything offhand, but I'm sure that yeah.
I remember a night I slept in a doorway in Hell's Kitchen.
Oh my God. And this was like in the 90s or worse.
This is worse. When was this? I married for the first time in 83. So yeah, this was in the 70s.
Jeez, that's like the worst time.
Yeah, it was Hell's Kitchen. It was the corner of 9th and 52nd Street, my girlfriend. And she was out, and she was indeed fucking somebody else.
Wait. I have to say, I have to do an explainer for people. 52nd and 9th in the 70s is like, that's like the most Irish mob time area. Like that, anything west of 7th Avenue was bad.
Yes, yes. It was terrible. Right opposite, what's it, Roosevelt Hospital.
Wow.
Her apartment was in the building right opposite the emergency room for Roosevelt Hospital.
Roosevelt Hospital is where John Lennon was taken.
Right, at 52nd Street, sure. So I slept in her doorway one night. You know, she was out banging somebody else, and I sort of had a feeling she was out banging someone else. So I thought, well, when she comes home in the morning making her walk of shame, I'd like to embarrass her as much as I possibly can. So in an obsessive kind of sick, only a young man would do something this destructive. Instead of just going, fuck you, I'm moving on. I slept in her doorway. A doorway, I might add, that had like 4 bolts on it for safety. But I slept in the doorway as if sleeping in the whole way of her building was safe.
Oh, good Lord. Well, I'm glad you're still alive. Well, how did it turn out? Were you able to patch it up?
Periodically, we continued to see each other on and off for quite some time. We turn up, we're in Lauren's now, and it's the middle of the night. So Alex couldn't get in touch with Lauren, so he decides to drive to Lauren's apartment. And he sort of sneaks into the apartment in the dark, and then he's like, first of all, how did he get in?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because I felt like I looked away for a second, and I was like, wait, how did he get in there? Does he have a key?
No, there was no key. It was open.
Well, that's dangerous. Well, it's Columbus. It's not 52nd and 9th.
And then, of course, he's in the bed. Lauren, baby. Sweetie, sweetheart. Oh, you'll never guess, folks.
No. Wearing a nightgown and a bonnet on top of their head. With a high-pitched voice. It's Campbell Scott, yeah.
It was Campbell Scott as Eric in bed. And then we have this sort of, I appreciated the comic sensibility of seeing them in bed, sort of lying there like a couple. I thought that was sort of cute.
Sure, yeah.
But I also thought, wow, this is such a dullard, this character that they created of Eric is so dull.
Yeah, at first when you first meet him, it works because it's running against Alex. But now that they like each other, there was no forward momentum anymore.
No, and that's it. It was sort of like, okay, well, when we first met you, there was enough of a contrast that you were better than Alex, so that was enough of a contrast that I got the joke. Now you just seem to be buddies lying in bed together. By the way, Lauren's down at the end of the hall in a friend's apartment.
Why? They never explain.
So that it doesn't give the look of impropriety.
Oh, so wait, this is maybe I was just confused. I thought that Eric was staying on a couch bed.
I think that's her only bed.
Oh, okay. Because I thought she was supposed to be in her bedroom. He was on the couch
Yeah, I
bed.
thought it was a one bedroom at first. I was confused, and then if it's sort of like, nah, I think it's a studio, and that that's her pull out couch and bed.
Okay, that's good then. That's fine. Here's the only thing I'll say though. Eric should have had a hotel. He drives a black Porsche apparently.
Right.
How did he not rent a hotel?
I don't get it. And then, of course, my first thought when she sees Alex is, I can't believe her first words aren't, "You didn't trust me." Now, she gets to it about 4 or 5 lines in,
Yeah.
but it wasn't her first words. Thank God she gets to it, because I was thinking, come on, what's the only real thing to say when your boyfriend comes over, and especially at this stage of their relationship? It's early enough in their relationship, and things are certainly going well, where it appears as though they have fallen in love with each other, then to immediately jump conclusions, Alex, that she's fucking him, that's silly.
Right.
Just you would fuck him, Alex, doesn't mean that Lauren's fucking him.
Very good point. But at the same time, I totally agree with you with regard to the jealousy and stuff like that. I still think that she should have called him just to be like, hey, I'm home now. I'm going to stay.
Right. There was no reason. And of course, we leave out sort of a plot point like that. And I think to myself, well, they left it out so that they would actually have a leg to stand on. But I don't think it was realistic. I think the more realistic thing is for her to call up and say, hey, I just wanted you to know he had to stay over. Who wouldn't do that? That's the most up-and-up thing to do.
Exactly.
But it sets up the final scene in the show, which is the classic Family Ties final scene that we have come to know and love.
And detest.
Right, and detest. Whichever Keaton child is learning their lesson arrives home, has a brief scene with either mother, father, or both, sometimes brother or sister, but most of the time mother, father, or both. In this case, father. And we immediately lead right into the incredible, and they should have patented this, the knock on the kitchen door.
I mean, you have a front door, but no one uses it.
No one uses it, and they come over at all hours of the day and night. People barge in with no regard to the 5 or 6-year-old child that lives upstairs, to the high school freshman that needs to get her sleep, to the college freshman who needs to get her sleep, to the architect/mother who last week is so harried she doesn't have enough time to take a shit, and to the father who apparently sits up at 3 a.m. reading philosophy.
It's a full house.
Oh, it is. And Lauren is at the back door, and Stephen gives them the room to have their final discussion, of which, once again, I will confess to you, I tuned these out because they're all the same.
The only interesting part that stuck out to me in this is that they made me like Alex P. Keaton because of his sociopathy, where she says to him, well, I mean, of course I love you. Why wouldn't I? He's like, well, can you name the ways that you love me? And she goes, what do you mean? He's like, I can name the ways I love you. And he goes, blah, 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 blah. And he names off a dozen things. And it's really sweet in like the Sherlock, the BBC Sherlock thing of just like a person who has sort of no emotional affect saying nice things because they're listing them. And so it's just a kind of a sweet moment where he says all of these great qualities about Lauren that we don't really ever see.
Absolutely.
That sort of wins the audience and Lauren's heart. And then she goes, well, the thing that I would say is the Banana Boat song. And he's like, what? And I'm like, what?
And I'm like, what as well?
Apparently they went to some econ market thing and she was so bored there and he started singing the Banana Boat song to her and it cheered her up.
I thought when they started it, they would link the actual song itself, the lyrics of the song itself, to something. And it just had nothing to do with it. They just thought they could get a laugh on the Banana Boat song.
I think, yeah. I think it's just that it's a silly, fun-sounding song, and that they just wanted to use that.
And that's it.
You know what? If I were Alex, I would be a little upset that that's the only thing that Lauren likes about me.
Dale.
Yeah, so that's it. That's about the nuts and bolts of this episode. Both the A plot and the B plot were recycled, some more than others. And yeah, I liked Campbell Scott for being there, and his character started out well, but ultimately this episode was just kind of a C-.
Yeah, it was like, okay. You brought it in time and under budget. So congratulations, gentlemen.
Indeed. So like and rate and review our show on iTunes, please. For questions and comments, email us at qualitytimewithfamilyties@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at QTWFT for updates. You can follow each of us on Twitter. I'm at Paul Packler.
I'm at Corpep, and Scott's at Follow Jones.
And great job last week, Scott. We didn't get to say it at the top of the episode, but Corey really loved the episode. He's listened to it 3 times?
Well, I listened to it once, and then the next night I was having trouble falling asleep. So I put it on in like my headphones, and Scott, I swear to God, like this, I was out like a fucking light. And then the next night, I knew I was really, really tired, so I just put it on again, and it just out. It's like a hypnotic thing, and it's great.
It's safer than melatonin, because melatonin you might overdo it. So
right, and you don't want to end up like Heath Ledger just because when you can have Scott Jones talk to you all night long.
It's true. It's true. Poor Heath, and thank God for Scott. And you can like our page on Facebook. We'd like to thank our host and producer, Barbara Dillon, at Fanbase Press. Fanbase Press is a comic book publisher and an online community supporting other creators and fans through daily reviews, interviews, and podcasts that span the pop culture spectrum. FanbasePress.com. We'd like to thank Perry Adams, who beautifully performs Family Ties and our theme song Without Us. Check out her website, perryadams.com. We'd like to thank Bryant Dillon, who created our fantastic drawing and artwork, as well as edits our show. Bryant is the president and co-founder of Fanbase Press. Follow him on Twitter at Comic Book Slayer. Finally, we'd like to thank Sean Foster, Fanbase Press's graphic designer, for designing our logo. Gang, we'll see you next week.
Sha-la-la-la.
Bye.